Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Puck Lines Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. A little bit of business to get started. Make sure you give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at Puck Lines Pod. YouTube is some weird long URL because you guys still haven't helped me hit 100 subscribers. So please be sure to get on that this week. But I am Andrew Taverna. I am joined here with my co-host today, Connor Green. How you doing, Connor?
I'm doing great, Mr. Serious Cereal on YouTube.
Shut up.
How are you doing this week?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been I've been doing a little betting this week on other sports, get myself kind of warmed up. Had my first live game betting last night on the Red Sox, so that was a little interesting. I knew I was going to lose my bet, so I went in and doubled down. Thankfully, it paid off as close as it looked like it was not going to. But I'm ready for the hockey season. I was betting on some KHL hockey this morning. I'm getting so desperate.
Wow, I saw you went 2 for 3 on the Boston Red Sox last night. So that's a plus. It's not hockey, but hockey starts tomorrow, so we got to get those juices flowing for the first official full-fledged gambling episode this season.
That's right. We're going to give some picks out today. We're going to do a little bit of talking about how you can join me in my degenerate ways. And we'll give a little bit of a love tap to how to actually do sports betting. So if you're worried about getting to that section of the show and getting lost, I'll fill folks in a little bit before we actually do that. But man, the Bruins did something this week I never expected.
Nope.
In the waiving of Chris Wagner and John Moore, can I just tell you, people on Twitter lost their absolute mind on me about the fact that I put a little cry emoji when I found out they both cleared waivers.
Oh my God, I know. I was hoping that somebody would claim at least John Moore.
Right? Like, take the money off the books. Why? What is everybody's obsession with John Moore? Like, listen, he had a good camp. He did. Objectively, he had a good camp. It maybe even looked like he was going to make the team. But then everybody remembered he's John freaking Moore. So, of course, he wasn't going to. I mean, I just don't understand where the sudden love fest came from. It was kind of awkward.
It was kind of awkward, especially for Chris Wagner, who everybody was so ready to get rid of after last season and try to figure out how to bury him in the minors to save that 1.1 million. Yes, I'm talking about myself. But that being aside, I'm kind of curious as to what this means for both of the players. I saw this morning for practice that they are both still practicing with the team. John Moore is actually participating in line rushes where Chris Wagner is not. So that's really interesting to me.
Did you see the Cassidy interview where he stated that just because they placed them both through waivers doesn't mean one of them might not be on the roster? One or both of them, I believe he said. Like, I think it's interesting. I mean, they're clearly playing a game here, right? And I think the John Moore one, you may be seeing them just try and continue to push him to see what he can and can't do. I mean, listen, John Moore is not going to stay healthy.
No.
So I think it's a tremendous risk to go into this season thinking John Moore is a difference maker for your lineup.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's what they're expecting. I think they understand that he's going to be a depth defenseman. It's just costing them a lot of money. And I feel like they're playing a game here within the organization's front office. You play him in the preseason. He does pretty well coming back from an injury. My bet is that they were trying to trade both of these players for the last 2 weeks and nothing came up. So they said, okay, we're going to pass them through waivers. They clear. We can now have the option to keep them, send them down to Providence, or now they could be traded and then sent down to the AHL because they've already cleared waivers.
Right.
So,
and I mean, okay, so hold on before we move on, because now you're speculating something I haven't heard yet. and I think it's probably a BS bogus theory, but I want to explore this a little bit. You're saying that they potentially sent them through waivers for the purpose of making them more appealing in the trade market.
Potentially.
I mean, it's not a half bad theory. I don't know that it's true. Listen, I think they tried to move both these guys in the offseason, right? Like at the end of the day, the interest just isn't there from other teams, because if interest had been there.
Well, one caveat, just for housekeeping notes, because I know Mark likes to watch our podcast and chirp us a little bit. We love you too, Mark. We could not trade John Moore this offseason because he was on IR.
Fine. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, you are right about that. That said, you could have prepared something for when he came off IR.
Yeah.
Right? Like here's the deal. I don't think there's enough value in either of those players for anybody to want them alone.
Correct.
I do think you could see them be part of a package for something this year. Now, everybody's all fancy on all this new cap space we have. The one thing I do want to put out into the atmosphere, just to kind of give everybody another heart attack today, they may have just cleared this cap space so they could sign Rask midseason. Just to be clear, like this cap space could be reserved to bring back Tuukka Rask in December. So I think it's interesting they're going to have this much cap space. If they get to the deadline with this much cap space, it becomes
15 million.
Yeah. So I've seen conflicting numbers on that. Now I know Reed, who we're a big fan of Bruins cap space, on Twitter, highly suggested follow. I believe that's the number he came up with. I think I saw another one that was like 8.5. Either way, you're talking about a big time contract or two almost that you could bring back
or two
as an addition to your trade deadline movement. That said, I'm not convinced this isn't part of bringing Rask back as the plan. And I'm going to be cautiously optimistic in saying that it's going to be a good problem to have, because Ullmark and Swayman are going to prove to be a really, really strong tandem.
Yeah, I agree. And I just double checked. I always kind of go to Cap Friendly for most of the things that I deal with. Cap Friendly says that they will currently have an estimated roughly 8.2 million at the deadline with way things are currently constructed. However, that is with Wagner and more being on the roster. They will have 8.2 once they get there.
Got it. Okay.
If they move on from those two, they gain that extra 3 million, and it's roughly 3/4 of the way through the season that the deadline comes. That's where you get that jump up to 15.
Okay, and that's why we're seeing two disparate numbers, which makes sense, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think the Bruins are done, and I think that's kind of what you and I are both trying to get across here, right? Like, there's more that's going to happen. I'm not sure I buy into it's going to happen before the season at this point, with the season just
4 days
basically
away.
being here.
Yeah.
But I do think that you could see something come towards the deadline. I think if you don't see Rask re-sign in December, it's about to be a really, really interesting trade deadline.
I believe he has to sign by December 12th to be able to play, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds familiar. It's sometime in December, I believe, that the deadline is.
But either way you look at it, they've got, at that point, if they don't move anyone, you've got $15 million in cap space at the trade deadline. That tells me that this is it. Like, I know I'm jumping way down this line and going way off the trail, but this is going to be the most cap space at the deadline the Bruins have had in like the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
If I had known you were going to say that, I would have made you get a duck boat picture for our YouTube watchers, because I feel like you're about ready to roll the duck boats down the road.
Not ready to roll the duck boats. I primarily mean, if they're going to go big and swing for the fences for home runs and get star players to come at the deadline to try and win a Stanley Cup, that's where 15 million comes from. Or, because that tells me this is it. They're preparing for something. Well, they've got to be trying to load up for another 1 to 2 years. And that's
I think they put the writing on the wall with the contracts they signed this offseason in the bottom 6, right? This is the last 2 years. They're fully acknowledging that. I think it also, and I'm going to create some headaches for some folks here, I think it also speaks to Bergeron's plans.
Correct.
I think if you see Bergeron win this year, he doesn't play next year. I think if he doesn't win this year, you see him play next year, and he's probably out after that, to be completely honest. I mean, I know I've said that maybe it's a 3-year thing. I'm starting to feel like Bergeron is saying, put it together, push it, let me get another crack or 2 at it, and I'm done. I want to be done when I still enjoy playing this game.
Yeah.
And I think for him, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, the guy doesn't have any more accolades to add to his career, right? I mean, sure,
he needs
he'd like
one more
cup.
Selke.
Sure, he'd like another cup. Sure, he'd like the Selke. I will say this right now, and I don't know how much we'll get into this later, if we'll have time or not. Bergeron for the Selke is the most comfortable I've felt placing a futures wager in my entire life.
He at least makes the finalists every year.
He makes the finalists every year, but if they screw him out of it this year, like they did last year, they are just doing him dirty. There is no other explanation. I will not accept any other explanation, and I will destroy you if you come at me with any other explanation. If they screw him out of it this year, I mean, listen, unless he goes down and doesn't play 50% of the games or something, which, by the way, Patrice Bergeron doesn't do, knock on wood. I think it's safe to say he should be a shoo-in for that award this year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Most likely he will be Selke winner, per usual. They'll give him his last one to get him into the sole lead for the Patrice Bergeron Award. And then he'll be good to retire whenever he decides.
Yeah, and that's it, right? I mean, it's almost like the league would be doing a giant disrespect and disservice to not just him as a player or the Bruins or as an organization, but to the award ceremony. I just don't see that happen. I'm just going to stick with, I think that's a good future bet. I almost would take that even at favorable odds. I don't believe it's at favorable odds, but I would almost take Bergeron Selke at minus 105, 150 type thing. But I guess kind of back to the point of this, right? Like the construction of this lineup going into game 1 against Dallas, I don't think you see Wagner or Moore. I think you see Kuhlman playing that fourth line center.
Which he is on the wing on the fourth line this morning.
Which is interesting. Who's in the center on the fourth line?
Nosek with Frederick on the other wing.
Okay. Which, fine. I don't see how you don't give Studnicka a crack at the wing. But again, fourth line minutes I'm not in on. So that's fine. It's not fine. Should we talk about... Actually, we didn't put on the agenda the tweet I sent out the other morning that sent Bruins Twitter into an absolute frenzy, which is the Boston Bruins should trade Jack Studnicka to another team so that he gets NHL minutes. Oh, you all had a collective meltdown when within 4 minutes I tweeted out that I was angry and that this was a joke. 4 minutes. So if you had just opened, if you had clicked, you would have known that it was a joke. But by time that everybody else was picking it up and being like, people are talking about Studnicka getting traded, I had to let it go. I had to let it go. It was so good that we got scenarios on Eichel trades back to Boston that involved DeBrusk and Coyle, and it just got crazy on Twitter. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. So thank you guys for engaging with me. I was really bored that morning, and causing everybody that much heartache and panic was kind of what I live for, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, trading Jack Studnicka would be something. But actually, you reminded me of something. The Jeff Merrick show. Jeff Merrick's probably one of my favorite sports people in the game. And he had Brian Burke on one of his episodes, I think it was last Friday. And they talked about Teddy Blueger in Pittsburgh. And he was a Teddy Blueger fan before he even became part of that organization.
Yep.
And he talked about how he had skill, but he started on the fourth line, moved his way up to the third line, and now has moved himself up to the second line. You don't see that happen often with players in the NHL. If you are a top 6 player, you should not be playing fourth line minutes. I don't care who you are, because you have to play a complete different mentality of the game.
Yep.
That will hurt development. I've said that for a while, even earlier on this summer when we were talking about the scouting and the draft and prospects. We have too many prospects who they think are top 6 with no room for top 6.
Right.
So, I mean, if you could say that you were going to trade Studnicka, Zboril, Vakanainen, DeBrusk, and 2 first-round picks for Jack Eichel, sure, go ahead.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I wish I had the trade in front of me. I believe the trade, credit to Kevin from the Beehive podcast for this, even though he doesn't want credit for it. I believe the trade was DeBrusk, Coyle, Moore.
Correct.
And that might have been it. DeBrusk, Coyle, and Moore for Eichel and 2 firsts back from Buffalo.
For Eichel and 2 firsts. That's correct. I have the tweet right here. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna make Kevin famous because I know he's been telling us he wants us to live stream it, but he's gonna have to come and watch this one just for himself.
Yeah, I mean, this is his moment on our show. I mean, other than the time we had him on, and we'll probably have him on again because we like him, but let's make him famous.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to think that this is something that could be legitimate as far as getting rid of Coyle, DeBrusk, and Moore. Definitely not what the Sabres are going to want. I think my offer is a little more realistic to what they're wanting. And guess what? The Bruins are going to have $15 million in cap space by the time
we're not going down the Eichel road again. I'm shutting down the Eichel talk. That was a joke, but I let's talk about something better than Eichel, because I'm tired of talking about Jack Eichel on this podcast.
All right. So Curtis Lazar, for another one of the Bruins pieces, while we throw up Kevin's tweet, we have Curtis Lazar, who is going to be out week to week with an upper body injury, hence the Carson Coleman coming in and joining the bottom 6 there on the fourth line.
I think it's interesting not to see him at center, which is where I would anticipate seeing him. But listen, I think your bottom 6 are going to be a constant rotation this year. I think the injury to Lazar is interesting timing. Not on like, I think it's going to create real controversy, but it could create even more competition in an already competitive bottom 6. And I actually find that to be a good thing. I think it's good for the competitive nature of the roster and creating limited spots that keep people moving. I have like this unwarranted fear, I think, that like a Trent Frederick 5 games in is going to lose his motivation for some reason, or DeBrusk is going to do this streaky thing he does where he comes out, he'll, first 7 games, he'll put up 13 points, and then all of a sudden he's going to disappear for 10. Like, I think that internal competition will keep that bottom 6 almost in check or in line, for a lack of a better term. But I'm just not sure how you manage that as a coaching staff, right? There's so many options.
So it almost looks like they have a lack of identity in identity roles. So I'm going to kind of go back, to the Merlot line that everybody's well aware of. Then you had Corrali, Achari, and Nash. You had identity. And I don't think that you're going to get that same style of identity from your fourth line with Frederic, Nosek, and Coleman. That is a skilled fourth line. That is not a just run you into the corners, puck possession, honey badger type line.
Right.
There is really no honey badgers on this team. And that is what concerns me to some degree. Everybody on the Bruins roster who would step up and take a fight last year when they knew that there needed to be a fight as a reaction or, what have you, they're all gone.
Oh,
you have Nick Foligno, who fought a Corey Perry after the John Tavares hit, where Corey Perry didn't even throw a punch.
So then, I guess my question to you is, so why wouldn't Frederic be your guy for that?
He would have until I saw what I saw last year. And they put the dog collar on him and said heel,
But I think it's they told he's got to find that balance of his game. I think that's a big part and value to his game. So I think you have to let him get that part of his game back. I think the coaching staff needs to find a way to teach him the appropriate moments to do those things and to not. And if there's anybody I have faith in being able to do that, it's Bruce Cassidy. I mean, his development of young guys speaks for itself, right? I mean, all that time he had all that success in Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Cassidy was a driving factor of that. His ability to communicate and work in the style of younger players is strong, and I'm high on that. So I do think Trent Frederic comes back and has a better year. Full sample size. Mm-hmm. I think that he probably finds that edge to his game. I think
he also had some type of illness. I don't remember if it was COVID or not, but he had some illness. I think it was, but I'm not sure, so I don't want to say it. But he didn't look right after that. And that was shortly after he kind of got yanked out of the Bruins roster from that Capitals game where he just kept chasing Wilson around the ice.
I'm trying to look. Did he ever get back into the lineup even? I don't know that he ever actually
I'm not too sure. I don't think he really did.
Yeah, I don't think he ever made it back into the lineup even after that. I think he was very limited on time. So I actually don't believe we know what the illness was. I believe it was just categorized as illness. So listen, yeah. I think Trent Frederic could be an invaluable asset to this team. I think they do have to get him to find that right balance. And honestly, one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to of having Chris Kelly on this coaching staff is being able to coach those bottom six guys on what a bottom six role really, what it really means to be in a bottom six role and how you contribute to a winning organization with winning depth.
So check this out. I'm going to bring a different name for who's going to be important for Frederic, and then I'm going to tell you why. Adam McQuaid.
Okay.
Completely different position. I understand that.
Yeah.
But Adam McQuaid and Brad Marchand played in the AHL together. Brad Marchand was the fighter and the scrapper. Adam McQuaid was not in the AHL. When they came up, he switched it up. He knew that he had to play the physical, tough guy, beat the shit out of you mentality in that role. And he had to learn to pick his battles and the timing. I think that is going to be helpful to Frederic. And then I think Brad Marchand is going to be the guy. Same style of player. Frederic is nowhere near as skilled. He is skilled. He can score, but he's not a Brad Marchand. He's not, top three wing in the NHL right now.
Correct. What I will say, though, is Marchand started on the fourth line.
Correct. He
playing
did.
for the Boston Bruins. So
because of his identity in the AHL, and then he progressed.
I understand. All I'm saying, though, is listen, Trent Frederic is not Brad Marchand. You know what? I'm going to get people all worked up here. They're not the same. I'm just saying that players can follow that path and that trajectory if they're skilled enough. Again, not the same player. Like,
he could work his way into being a solid middle six player.
correct.
With second line kind of being the ceiling, I would feel.
I would assume. I think if you had asked me when Marchand was on the fourth line all the way back then, did I think he was going to be maybe the most elite forward? And I'm saying almost the most elite forward in the NHL? Not a freaking chance. I would have laughed at you. Like, I would have legitimately laughed you out of a room and been like, please don't talk to me if you know nothing about hockey. Yeah. Look how wrong I would have been. Shocker. Andrew was wrong. Man, I don't know how many times this season we're going to say that, but I'm sure it'll be a few.
Hopefully not a lot in the gambling segment. Hopefully we can keep it to the Bruins or the NHL. And then one of the other things of note here before we kind of get into the Bruins' upcoming game this week is David Posternock was announced as one of the top 3 players to make the Czech national team for the upcoming Beijing Olympics. Not surprised.
Good for him, though.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of Bruins that end up making Olympic rosters. I was looking through the roster and it seemed like at least 10 people have a good chance to make it. But Pasta is the only player on the team to make the opening 3 for the roster. And we're going to get into some more here once we get into the NHL news. That was the only Bruin. So I kind of want to finish off this portion of the podcast for all our Bruins listeners with the upcoming game this week against Dallas on the 16th. What has you most excited about this game coming up here, Andrew? Aside from the obvious.
Studnicka's second line center. No. All right. I'm just kidding. I think what has me most excited is to see a full 60-minute effort from whatever the roster we feel is going to be the strongest coming out of camp. So by that, I mean 2 things. One, I think just seeing however we construct the bottom 6 in that D-core. I've heard a lot of negativity the last few days on Forbort and his play with McAvoy. Mm-hmm. So I'll be really curious to see them in game action. Is he really as much of a boat anchor as everybody is accusing him of being? Is he going to get blown by in real season, regular season action? And then goaltending. Who's going to start in nets? And for me, I'm sticking with my take. I think Jeremy Swayman won that first game out of camp. I think Ullmark plays in game 2 or 3 because you're going to alternate them very early and often. And then you're going to ride hot hand month to month. My boy, Mark Allred, I know he thinks that it will be the opposite, that you pay Ullmark and you start Ullmark. I'm going to tell you right now, if the Bruins do that, I don't object to it. But my primary thing comes down to then, when do you insert Swayman? Because if you're telling, and I know Mark has said that, Ullmark will have a short leash. I actually wish you were here because I think Mark and I have very similar points of view, but from the opposite side. So I think it's a really interesting conversation, right? Like, how short is the leash on Ullmark, and how many games do you give Ullmark before you reinsert Swayman? Right. And like, these are the things I'm most interested in the first, let's say 5 games, is the usage of Ullmark and Swayman. Is it really Bruce is going to ride the hot hand? And if Swayman wins his first 2, he gets the 3rd and 4th? Or is it going to be, no, we need to see both of these guys at the end of the year. It needs to end up 60-40 Ullmark. And that's just how it's going to be. What are your thoughts?
I feel like, first and foremost, I want to believe what you say is right. Jeremy Swayman is the goaltender on my fantasy hockey team. So, of course, I'll root for him. But I think Mark is right. I think you have to start Ullmark with the contract that you've given him.
Yeah.
Understanding that Swayman is the future, yes. But he's not there yet. And I think you have to put some stock in somebody who you went out and spent the money on to bring here.
I get that, but okay. So
hold on. Let me finish before you beat me up, because I'm
not going to beat you up. I have a question to add to that.
Okay, then maybe I'll answer your question. So as far as a short leash, I don't think there's any short leash for either one of these goaltenders within the first 15 games of the season. You're not going to see any goalie being pulled in a game. I don't think that'll happen. And I don't think you're going to have a run of games where one of these goaltenders plays more than 4 in a row. I think it's going to be very, very 50-50 to start the season to see what they've got.
So, and so you're 100% aligned with Mark, I believe. I don't believe Mark thinks that people are going to get pulled necessarily. I think he thinks you could see the shift over to the other goaltender. Here's my concern. And I still, in all the guest appearances I've done on other podcasts and on our own show in the last week, I have yet to be able to articulate this. So
I'll help
here's
you.
Here's attempt home. Number 15. Cassidy went in and set the tone for his players, saying that he was going to ride the hot hand.
Yep.
Ullmark, admittedly, from Cassidy's point of view, needs reps. Do you give him a rep in game 1 when you came out and said you're going to ride the hot hand? Why not give Swayman game 1 and give Ullmark game 2 and 3 and 4 to get his reps in, and then go back to Swayman in 5 and then start to alternate again? Like, do you want to come out to the first game of the season and potentially have a shaky goaltender? Now, I know I'm hearing Kevin in my ears right now. Regular season, preseason, entirely different stakes, entirely different game. I hear that. I understand that. I just can't fathom not giving Swayman that first game of the season. I just don't think he's done anything to deserve not getting that first game. I'm not asking him to play every game of the season. I'm not even asking him to play the 60-40. I'm fine if he plays the 40. And frankly, if Rask comes back, then he probably gets pushed back to the A.
And then you're going to have the same problem with Rask and Ullmark.
Yes. I'm not sure that I'm gonna make some real friends here when I say this. Unless something goes catastrophically wrong, I see no reason to bring Tuukka Rask back. Don't get me wrong. He is the most elite goaltender the Boston Bruins organization has ever had. But at some point, you're building a team here beyond just this moment.
Yeah.
You can't.
We have the goaltenders of the future here right now.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying about not wanting to bring Rask back, and I am with you. But I don't think we're going to get what we want. I think they will bring back Rask just for the sole purpose of they don't want this to be the issue with Swayman. Even before the offseason happened, they did not want this with Swayman.
I know.
And getting in the way.
That's
why everybody who is a Boston Bruins fan on planet Earth had a stroke when they saw Ullmark to Boston for that contract.
I hear that, and I conceptualize that. I accept that. What I am struggling with, you've brought in Ullmark, who frankly just needs to wash the buffalo off of him, right? Like, he's going to be a great goaltender for the Bruins. He's not going to be Tuukka Rask. So all of a sudden, you now need to score an extra goal or two a night to win hockey games. So fine, you address your secondary scoring in the offseason. Theoretically, you've got a goaltender who will keep you in games. You've got Swayman, who's going to learn from this goaltender. Everything's hunky-dory. You get Rask back mid-season. He's an elite goaltender. As long as he's feeling well, he's going to come back locked in. I don't think it will take him very long to get back into the swing of things. Great. You're still... Like I don't think people are understanding me. Give Swayman the first game of the season because he earned it. And then whatever the hell you do with goaltending the rest of the year, I don't care. But Swayman came to camp. He worked his ass off. He played well in preseason games. He was locked in. Give him the first game. It's a confidence thing for me.
Okay, so you want to give him the cookie.
Yes.
For basically good behavior and playing the way he should.
It's the same reason I'm this passionate about Stednica. If we tell you, go out and do something, bust your ass, work as hard as you can work, we're going to give you the reward at the end of this. And then you go, you did everything we asked. Now bleep off. Like, it just feels wrong. Now, this is a professional sport. So I'm not asking you to have emotion or sympathy for these people. I'm asking you to be an organization of your word. That's all I want.
Let me ask you another question. If Tuukka Rask comes back and they reward Swayman for good play and they have him playing a decent amount of games this year, what is it telling Swayman when they send him down to the AHL because they sign another goalie instead?
Swayman knows the situation. He knows
exactly. That's my point.
But which is why give him game 1 and then do whatever the hell you need to do in December to win a cup.
Okay.
Give him game 1. One, excuse my language. One fucking game. Give him the one game that he earned and won, rightfully so, and then do whatever you have to do to win the cup. But give him the one game.
Okay.
And now I have to mark this episode as explicit because, again, I was unable to help myself and get through a whole episode without getting fired up and all worked up about something.
Hey, trust me. I hear you. Now, outside of goaltending for game 1, what are some of the other things that you're looking out for here?
I think secondary scoring is my other big thing that I'm fearful of. I think we've made a lot of moves. I think we've made a lot of positive moves. That first power play unit is like heaven on earth, like awesome. Can we score enough goals to win games? I'm worried.
Why are you worried? You think Taylor Hall's going to score 100 points? That's over a point per game.
Great. But your first and second line can't do everything.
So I agree with you on the depth scoring, but I want to be very, very specific with mine.
Sure. When
I say that I am concerned about depth scoring, I am talking about everything aside from 63, 37, and 88.
No, you're not worried about that.
Line. Yes.
You're worried about Hall and Smith scoring goals?
Hall, Smith, and Coyle together producing. I need to see it first. I'm not sold.
So I'm sold on Hall. I'm sold on Smith. I still think on a winning team, Smith is probably your third line guy, but I think he can squeak out that second line playing with somebody like Hall.
I think Smith and Hall work better together than a Coyle will. Coyle's a very strong-bodied puck possession center, where Taylor Hall is a playmaking winger,
right,
who can shoot the puck, but then Craig Smith just will shoot anything that hits his stick. that is going towards the net.
Yes.
Which that works well with Taylor Hall.
Yes.
I am concerned about how that is going to impact them with having a center who is a puck control battle in the corner center, opposed to somebody who is a skilled disher.
I'm not against that concern. I'm also the guy who said maybe you give Stednica the first crack at 2C. So
I'm there with you.
It's not going to happen. I mean, Cassidy has made that all but clear that Coyle's done nothing to play himself out of that job in his one preseason game, whatever. I'm not going to get all worked up about that. I just think, listen, I am hopeful that Coyle can find consistency and that touch this year.
Me too.
I am a Bruins fan. I want that to happen. I'm not sold that it's going to happen. That said, Taylor Hall will still have 100 points and I'm still going to win that bet, but he'll probably just have to, pass and shoot himself. No, I do think that it's going to get figured out early. I don't think that, to use the term short leash, right? Like, I think there's a short leash on that position.
Yeah.
Coyle's not going to get much time to screw it up because you've got other options. So,
and that is a short leash because Cassidy loves to play with his lines all game long.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, I mean you're talking about like you could potentially see shuffling between the second and third line as early as game 2 or 3, I would say.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's going to take very long if he doesn't like what he sees.
And I think Eric Halla is probably going to be the first one to move into that position.
Yep. Well, because he's going to be on the bench already.
Exactly.
It's going to be easier, right, than a Studnicka. I still think Studnicka is the right answer, but we're not going to get into that any further because we're, I think close to 40 minutes into an episode, and I've done nothing but talk about Studnicka. So,
absolutely. So, let's move on here and let's get over to the NHL wide portion of the podcast. I'm going to start it off per usual, go over a few signings and let Andrew save some of his hot air. So to start it off, we've got some pretty big signings and big names this week. Mika Zibanejad re-signs with the New York Rangers, 8 years, $8.5 million annual value. Zach Parise and Zdeno Chara officially signed with the New York Rangers. Both contracts are the same, 1 year, $750,000 AAV. The one and only Jimmy Vesey and college superstar turned dud.
I almost drafted
the New Jersey Devils.
I almost drafted him, by the way, in our fantasy draft.
I would have had to make fun of you. He signs a 1 year, $800,000 contract with the Devils. Jack Johnson finished his PTO and signs with Colorado for 1 year, $750,000. Likewise, on the PTO train, James Neal signs with St. Louis.
This is a big signing.
$750,000. I think that is going to be a sneaky pickup.
Yes.
And then the biggest contract of them all, and the splash to ruin most of everyone's offseason next season, Alexander Barkov re-signs with Florida, 8 years, $10 million AAV.
Oh, that is a painful contract to see as a Bruins fan.
That is an absolute whopper, and I love it that he gets the same contract as Jack Eichel.
Oh, gee.
Now, one side note on Barkov before we talk about him a little bit. I always get totally thrown off when people call him Sasha because he goes by Sasha Barkov as well. Just random fun fact there, but he also goes by Alexander and Sasha. But what were you going to say about that contract in reference to Eichel?
I just think that it will be a great comparison in a couple of years when we're talking about how flippin' massive that contract was and how much of a mistake it is to sign somebody to 8 years at $10 million. Now, I'm fully acknowledging that we're going to do it with McAvoy in all likelihood. However, it's a very, very different spot to be in. Like, tremendously different spot to be in. So I personally feel that's a bad contract for Florida. I know that there are some Florida fans I've seen online who are perfectly fine with this, but when he gets to the latter half of that contract, you are going to be absolutely pissed you're paying him $10 million a year.
Now, why do you say that? Do you think he's going to decline because of age, or you just don't think he is that elite of a player?
I think it will be a combination of things, right? I think most people start to decline a little bit with age.
Okay.
And he's going to be aging into that part of his career where
he's 26 currently. He'll be 34 at the end.
Like that's 34's old. That after like 32 for me is like where I'm like, I want to sign a different contract with you regardless of who you are.
Okay.
Right? Like it's that 32-year-old mark for some reason that makes me go, ooh, we need to think about something different. You might have another good 5-6 years in you.
Yeah.
But at a lower cap hit, because as you approach 35, 36, you really should be hanging them up. Now, I know we're talking about earlier Zdeno Chara signing a 1-year deal, right? Like, I get that some players will play longer. I just don't see that being the value they need that to be at in let's say years 6 to 8, maybe.
Okay. So I'm going to get into this a little bit. I'm going to try to keep it kind of concise, but this is what I am a nerd for when it comes to hockey is the cap gymnastics. So this is where I think that they got the win. I agree with you. If you look at the AAV, this looks awful for what it is, but they did what I love. They did a Toronto Maple Leaf-esque move. His actual salary every year is only $1 million.
Fine.
Everything else is in performance bonuses. So years 7 and 8,
the cap will be that much higher.
The cap will be that much higher, but it turns into a modified no trade clause at that point, and he's only owed about $13 million over those last 2 years.
But you're talking actual cash value.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, in your regard of the last few years are going to suck, if they get there and they only get through, I don't know, 6 years and they decide to trade him, after July 1st on that 6 years, he's only owed $9 million over 2 years. So they could trade him to a team who's bad and who needs to hit the cap floor, like similar to how Buffalo will be if they trade away from their 10 million anchor. And they could trade away just for the AAV as a cash under cap to offload it. It makes it easy to move.
It does make it easy to move. I guess I have kind of two schools of thought on this. One, right? I know you love the cap gymnastics. I'm a little bit of these billionaire owners probably don't give a damn about the real money. Now, I know that's not entirely true. I think organizations that can't sell tickets tend to care about the money. Yeah.
After they just got egg on their face signing a goalie to a 7-year, $10 million a year contract, and they went back for it again.
Well, and so I was just going to go there. I think that's my bigger issue is this not just like a giant slap in the face of history repeating itself potentially? Like, why do this again to yourselves? You've learned this lesson, not in that near, like, not that distant of a past. So, like, what are you doing? Now, don't get me wrong. The player is likely going to be serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be good for a long time. So, like, maybe with the cap going up, it's not as big of a deal in the long run. I can't wrap my head around that being a good deal. And maybe it's because I'm a Bruins fan and I'm looking at McAvoy and I'm going, holy crap, what are we going to pay you?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to have to give you the deed to the TD Garden, like, in order to get you to sign a deal with us? Like, what exactly is it you're going to need to stay here? And I think the answer is he's going to sign on a hometown discount, but every contract that looks like this makes you just a little bit more nervous.
Yeah, but it's also a different position, different style of play. You know, he's a Selke candidate, which seems to be like every year. It's tough.
It's that $10 million hit. I've said this before when we've talked about Eichel, right? It's that $10 million number that bothers me. Anything 10 and over, it bothers me. If they had signed that deal at 9.5, I wouldn't be having all of this conversation today.
Fair enough. I mean, I think we can probably leave it at that. Did you have any other kind of comments as far as any of those other ones?
No, I mean, they're all organizational signings. I got nothing else. Like you said, the James Neal one, I think, could be sneaky good for them.
Mike Hoffman replacement.
But we'll have to see. I mean, that team has their own
struggles.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we are going to move over to a quick trade. Kind of insignificant. Talking about Florida again. Vancouver traded Ole Ulevy to Florida in exchange for defenseman Noah Juleson and forward Juho Lammikko. And I'm probably butchering that name. Forgive me. Pretty insignificant. It's not really roster players, just kind of depth players and prospects. So let's get over to a little bit of the meat and potatoes in the NHL portion here. We already told you guys earlier, Olympic rosters are announcing 3 players that will be on their team ahead of time to try and help drive some jersey sales, some talk about the team, excitement, etc. So we're going to start off with the US of A. They announced their top 3 players will be Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, and Seth Jones. Now, I saw you shake and shiver when I said Patrick Kane and Seth Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess what I will say to this is that if that is the pride of U.S. hockey, it makes me a little sad. That's all I'll say. I don't really want to get too far down this rabbit hole, right? Like, I think we can keep a pretty high level. I'm just saying if for the United States of America, those 3 guys, with the exception of Matthews, even Matthews to some extent, like, you know what? I'm going to
Matthews is the number 1 American player at this point.
Right. It's just, what's that say about the condition of your program in the U.S.?
The real thing that this says is Jack Eichel's injured and can't play.
Well, okay. And we're back. Welcome back to the Jack Eichel podcast.
But no, I hear you. What I took out of this on the US side is this was just names, the popular names that were going to make the team. This wasn't the best 3 players that are going to be on the team outside of Austin Matthews. It just seems like media cannon fodder, to be honest.
Sure.
Now,
I don't disagree with that.
The Canadian top 3, who we'll move on to, this was more serious. This is what you expected. Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and Alex Pietrangelo. Now, before you take over, Alex Pietrangelo surprised the shit out of me. He left on not the greatest of terms from St. Louis before he signed with Vegas, and his general manager from St. Louis named him to the top 3. I was personally shocked. I was not expecting that.
I don't know that I was. Okay, I wasn't expecting it. That's for sure. I don't know that I disagree with it either, though.
Okay.
I think that if we're talking about potential upside, potential Olympic caliber style game, right? Because you also have to keep in mind, the Olympics is a very different style game than the NHL, right? Like, it's just played very differently. So I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm a little surprised from like just the personal feelings and the way things shook out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just went to Vegas to sign a massive deal to be a top tier defenseman. I mean, I think announcing a top tier defenseman in your top 3 is not a bad move, especially when you've got 2 elite forwards that you're announcing with it. So do I think it's the top 3 Canadians that are going to go to the Olympics? No. Do I think the 3 make sense? Yes.
Yeah, kind of another publicity stunt. And as long as Sidney Crosby is able to fit in skates and push himself across the ice, he'll probably make Team Canada. So, that is what it is. But speaking of Sidney Crosby, we have been going on our division rankings kind of jaunt here, and we kind of ran out of some train tracks. So we're going to go do a 2-for-1. We're going to do the Metro and the Atlantic. We will keep the Atlantic very, very brief. We're not really going to get in depth. Later this week, we're going to have a bonus episode with some guests from Buffalo and from Montreal, and we're going to get real in deep to the Atlantic Division, and that'll be an entire episode. There won't really be any gambling outside of the Atlantic Division. There won't be, a Bruins segment, just Atlantic Division in your face. But the Metropolitan Division, I am going to go down here and just kind of name off the teams. And then, Andrew, why don't you kind of take it away after that and tell us where your head's at?
Sure.
So in the Metropolitan Division, you have the Carolina Hurricanes, Columbus Blue Jackets, New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Washington Capitals.
All right. So this is an interesting one for me. So we're going to let's talk about the fact that the favorites coming out of this division are the Islanders. I
don't get it, but
I think that's the way I've seen almost every book I've looked at be. The Islanders at our book, betonline.ag, are a plus 275. Now that to me is baffling. I don't take the Islanders at plus 275. There is not enough upside for that bet to make sense. The worst odds, I do think, are correct in the Blue Jackets at plus 8,000.
Mm-hmm.
Columbus just isn't. This isn't their year to win that division. I think when you're playing against the Capitals, the Penguins,
Rangers,
the Islanders, the Rangers, like Columbus probably isn't coming out of there. I'm not even sure and making the playoffs in that division. So
Columbus? No.
I mean, I think that here's the reason I'm hesitant to be so strict like you are. It's a city with a lot of heart. Team always plays its ass off, still loses. and I think that's like, they're just not very good.
Correct.
And so sometimes, as much as you can be a passionate team and you can have players who are passionate about the sport, if you don't have the skill, none of that really matters. And I think that's the lesson being learned there. For me, the Rangers are a little bit of a sleeper here at plus 400. I would probably hit on the Rangers at plus 400. I would not hit on the Penguins at plus 500. I would not hit on the Capitals at plus 675. That's a lie. As a Bruins fan, I have a hard time with this one. If you're a Capitals fan or you're a fan of the Metropolitan, the Capitals at plus 675 is actually decent money. I would maybe go with that. I was betting plus 675 bets out of the KHL this morning, so I don't know why I'm trying to lie to you and tell you that I wouldn't take the Capitals other than my pure hatred for the organization. And then I think kind of the one I want to call out to lay off of, even though they've put it here with decent money, is the Hurricanes at plus 450. Don't get sucked into that, folks. We know exactly what the book's wanting to do. Team's going to be lovable. They're probably going to play pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to make the playoffs. Just don't get sucked into them winning the division at plus 450. Now, if those odds start to slide and you start to see them at plus 550, plus 6, plus 650 after the first couple of games of the season, talk to me then. I may be willing to reconsider. I want to see them skate, and I want to see what they look like this year. I just don't know that the Hurricanes should be a plus 450 is my kind of overall take on that.
Yeah, I hear you there. I said it on a previous episode, and I'm going to stick with it. For my gambling money, I would probably put it on the New York Rangers here for sheer fact of 3 key additions to their team. 1, Barclay Goodrow. He is going to help stabilize their depth players.
Yep.
And their depth players are all top 6 talents as far as a Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, etc. They're all good players.
Yep.
Then the second biggest addition is going to be Ryan Reeves in that division. Yep. He is going to be able to bully those of the Capitals and the Islanders and keep that team in it, which I think is going to be extremely helpful to them. And then lastly, this is the biggest addition, which most people forget about. This is my most important on why I think the Rangers are going to make it to the Eastern Conference Final. And that is Gerard Gallant.
Sorry.
A lot of people forget that.
Hold on. Let's just back up a second. Did you just say that the Rangers are going to make it to the Eastern Conference Final?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
I said it like maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Did you?
I can't remember. Yeah.
I don't feel like I remember that, but that's interesting. Okay. All right.
I think they have all the ponies as far as the top 6 talent and the bottom 6 talent. I think their defense is good. I think their goaltending is the question mark, but Gerard Gallant's a really good coach.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just not sure I'm ready to, point my bat out of the ballpark just yet on an Eastern Conference Finals take. But hey, I think
then I'll dumb it down to just why they're gonna win this division. Will that help?
No, I think it's just hard for me to fathom that when you put it against the Islanders. Right? Listen, it's going to be the Islanders or it's going to be the Rangers, I think, coming out of that division. Let's put betting aside for a minute, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be the Islanders or the Rangers coming out of that division. Are we aligned on that? You're down on the Islanders, so this is why I'm asking this question. I can tell looking at your face for the folks watching, like you have something up your sleeve here that you're thinking. Take the betting off the table for a minute. I just want to know who your top 2 out of the Metropolitan are.
Betting off the table, I think the Rangers are my number 1.
Okay.
And then the Flyers are my second team. I think I got the Flyers there.
Wow. Sorry. For the folks that are listening, there was just a giant silence there. For the folks watching, I think I just almost fell out of my chair. So you're gonna put all right. So then explain to me how you put the Flyers over the Islanders this year. So, seeing what you've seen.
Seeing what I've seen, whether it be this year, previous years, etc., outside of Matthew Barzal and insert name here, there's really nobody that jumps off of their roster at you. They rely on playing a defensive game.
They rely on winning.
Yeah, but they rely on trying to keep the puck out of your net. They don't have people that are going to score your pants off.
Fine.
So just looking at the Flyers and what they did this offseason. So the Flyers were pretty good offensively previously. They still have Giroux, Kevin Hayes, JVR. They added Cam Atkinson in this year. They brought in a Derek Brassard and a Nate Thompson, who are going to play key bottom 6 roles. But they brought in Ryan Ellis, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Keith Yandel on their back end. They brought in 3 huge pieces to a blue line to put in front of a tandem of Carter Hart and Martin Jones. I think Martin Jones is going to play better than what he did in San Jose as a backup. And I think Carter Hart is going to play a lot better in net this year with a much, much better defense. Because
Carter Hart is the X factor for me.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to your take, and I'm actually going to lean into it a bit.
Let me read off the top 6 defensemen in Philly. Ivan Provorov, Ryan Ellis, Rasmus Ristolainen, Travis Sanheim, Justin Braun, and Keith Yandel. That's really good defensive unit, in my opinion.
That is a good defensive unit. I'm not against that. I'm gonna update our listeners on an idea. Flyers are at plus 800 to win the division. I will tell you, I would probably not do more than a half unit on this bet. But if you wanted to go take the Flyers at plus 800 at a half unit of whatever your units are, I wouldn't tell you to lay off that either. I think you got to be bought into watching some Flyers games this year to make it worth that. Like, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to have to watch that many Flyers games and be that into the Flyers. But I think that's an interesting position you've
So
put out
now,
there.
let me go into a little more depth in this division. I think Carolina is probably the class of the division as far as how strong they are through the entire lineup. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really young team. You never really know what you're going to get. The Blue Jackets, the Devils, they're both completely out of it, in my opinion.
Yep.
I know the Devils signed a lot of flashy players, but they're not really going to go anywhere.
It won't come together.
The Penguins, they are way too hurt right now to make it happen. They are going to miss Crosby and Malkin for the big chunk of the season to begin. I don't think that they're going to be able to crawl back out of whatever hole they get into when those two players are back because of the lack of depth on their team, and their goaltending is a giant question mark. Now, you go and look at the Capitals. The Capitals are good. I think their goaltending is trash, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to get them there. I think they are still heavily relying on their old war dogs to get them across the finish line. And I don't think that Backstrom, Oshie, and Ovechkin have that much more in the tank. And they play a really heavy hockey game where the other teams that I think are going to finish in the top are all speedy and have a lot of talent, i.e. the Hurricanes, the Rangers, and the Flyers. So it really came down to the Hurricanes, Rangers, and Flyers in that division. Okay. I think Carolina gets bumped down a couple pegs because of the inexperience, and they really have never won too much with who's on the team anyway.
Right.
The Rangers have a lot of people around that team who are middle-aged vets, if you will. They haven't been around forever. You know, they're not 35 plus, but they've been around. They've won on some teams. Like Artemi Panarin played with the Blackhawks. He won a lot with the Blackhawks. Trouba, he came out of Winnipeg. They were in the playoffs every year. They won. They have Ryan Reeves they just brought in. Barclay Goodrow. Gerard Gallant.
You're clearly high on the Rangers. I'm
and then
gathering
the Flyers are the same way. But I think the Flyers defense is what's going to make the biggest difference for their rise. And I think Carter Hart's going to be back. Carter Hart is going to be back. And it's going to be a wicked piss a kid.
We'll see. I'm liking the bold predictions. Like, this is going to make for an interesting season. I actually think for our listeners and the people watching, we'll probably talk about the Metropolitan a little bit more because I think those bold style predictions get me back to wanting to be there a few more times this season, just to look at how these lines shift after the first, let's say, 10 games. We'll look at the futures again. Mm-hmm. I would get in now on the Rangers and Flyers because I imagine both of those are moving in the opposite direction.
They're only going to go up.
I would get in on... That might be it. I think everybody else is going to... maybe the Capitals at plus 675. I'd get in on the Caps at plus 675 now because I imagine that's going to stabilize around plus 500, 450, which still won't be bad odds. Mm-hmm. But I do think that's going to stabilize a little bit. My guess is the book has played with that one because the Penguins being a plus 500 and the Capitals being a plus 675. I'm guessing somebody went in and put a bunch of money on the Penguins that shifted that down. But so I would definitely get in there now. Mm-hmm. Stay off the Jackets and the Devils. I know in some of the previous division previews, I told you a plus 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 could be cool for this team. None of the teams in this division warrant that kind of bet. So I would just lay off of that. So let's talk Atlantic real quick. Okay. I was going to do betting in this show instead of doing it during our preview. I think we need to touch on a little bit of betting during our special bonus episode. Yeah. Once we have confirmation from our guests, because I'm going to call out just a couple of things. Tampa plus 190. Beep off book. They're like, stop. Tampa, fine. whatever, plus 190, don't take it. Lay off.
That is for all the hockey fans or gambling fans who don't pay attention.
Right. That is exactly correct. They're looking to collect as much money on that as possible because people are going to feel like the odds are good.
Because Toronto, of 2 cups in a row.
Toronto plus 210. I'm going to tell you to lay off it because plus 210 is just not enough upside. I'll tell you that Toronto, I'm not down on ever during the regular season. Talk to me about round 1. The Bruins plus 375. I told you to take the Bruins back when they were at plus 425. I'm going to tell you to stick with the Bruins at plus 375. You can still take that. Anything after that, Florida at plus 425 even. Hit Florida if you're a Florida fan at plus 425. Don't hit it if you're not a Florida fan because you're probably going to lose that money. But it doesn't hurt to play around with if you want to have some fun. They'll get on a streak at some point. They'll be fun and competitive for a little while, but then after that, it's really nothing from there. After that, the reason I want to talk about it is because of the after that. Ottawa's at just for a little sneak peek. Ottawa's at plus 10,000, Montreal's at plus 4,000, and Buffalo, the Buffalo Sabres, are at a plus 15,000. I will put it to you this way. There are player props for awards that don't go to plus 15,000 on the odds. And those are player props on awards for full season things. That's the only way I'll leave that. I think we should talk more about the Montreal and Buffalo ones in our bonus pod here.
We can save some of those odds there and get a little more in depth when we have a lot more time, but plus 15,000, man. Whew. Just throw $1 on, Ottawa. Ottawa has way better chance of actually being something.
You know what? I'll give you this one too, because I don't know how these will shift with the start of the season, and we won't record before the start of the season. Montreal at plus 4,000. The Carey Price news is devastating to that organization in terms of him being out. But I still think Montreal at plus 4,000, depending on how long he's out for. As a Bruins fan, I'd never do it. But if you're listening and you're a fan of another org and you think it's interesting, put a quarter of a unit on it. Like, please don't go putting half a unit on anything that's plus 4,000. Like, don't be me. We'll talk. Well, maybe that's a good transition into the gambling corner. So I know we've been talking about futures. We've talked about futures in quite a few episodes. This is going to be the first episode this season. We're talking about actual betting on games.
Yeah.
So a couple of things to start off with. Number 1, please, if you're listening to this show and you enjoy gambling like I do, it's a lot of fun. Do not gamble more than you can afford to lose. I have one big piece of advice for you. Load up your book at the beginning of the season. Set yourself what you think you can afford for the season right now. Don't go, oh, well, I get paid again in a month and I'm going to put more money in. Stop it. That's not what you can afford. That's you taking money out of each of your paychecks to gamble with. Put money into your book now with what you can afford, bet safely for the season, and have fun. Now, how do you do that? We talk in units here, right? So you'll hear me refer to all the time, I'm betting 1 unit, I'm betting 2, I'm betting a half unit. A unit should be in the realm of 1% of your bankroll. So let's just be super even about this, right? $1 would be 1 unit on a $100 bankroll. So if you have a $300 bankroll, you're going to want it to be about $3. Now, I know a lot of people who would bump that up to 5 and just have fun at 5. I'm asking you for the purpose of a longevity and for enjoying the entire season with us, do not go placing $20 wagers with a $300 bankroll for the season. You're just not going to have fun. You're going to get upset when we miss one that was a guarantee or a lock of the week, right? Like, this is sports betting. if we have a really great season, we're going to hit about 63% of the time. And that's if we have a really good season. So, like, just remember, this is gambling. Please don't put more money out there than you can afford to lose, and have fun with it, because if you're not having fun, you're doing sports betting wrong. And so I think that's my intro to this section. Is there anything you would add to the betting safely, Connor, or do you want me to kind of jump into what it is we'll be betting on?
No, I mean, I think you wrapped it nicely, and I'll just kind of reiterate in my own voice here. Units are very, very objective. If you are a millionaire, you could have a much higher unit than we. If you are dirt poor, your unit is going to be different. Your unit is your unit. That's why we aren't going to discuss actual dollar amounts, so that everybody can feel comfortable and play with themselves. In the gambling sense, not the other one.
I hate you.
All
right.
Everybody who was watching on YouTube, that's gonna be it.
Yeah, I'm leaving. All right, so we're gonna bet on 3 different things this year. We're gonna bet on the total. That's when you hear people refer to the over/under on something. So over/unders in hockey are generally going to be about 5.5, 6, depending on the teams playing. Goaltenders starting, those shift a little bit. 5.5 is always safer than 6, but we'll kind of give you our advice on how we're going to play it. There's the money line. The money line simply means who's going to win the game. So if you take the Penguins on the money line, it means you're taking the Penguins to win the game. If you take the Lightning on the money line, it means you're taking the Lightning. The team that has a plus on the money line. So, for example, the first game we're going to bet is going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. On the money line, the Penguins are at a plus 173 and the Lightning are at a minus 192. So what that means is that the Lightning are favored to win because they're the minus number, and that you're going to win almost $2 to 1 if you bet on the Lightning. If you bet on the Penguins, it's not 50 cents, but it's going to be close to 50 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last one is the puck line. You've probably heard puck line before, It might be in our name. So the puck line is going to be a goal differential. It's like your spread in football or your run line in baseball. So the puck line is almost always in hockey set at plus 1.5. So basically what that means is the team you select needs to win by 2 in order for you to win your money. If that number's at 2, it means the team needs to win by 3 in all likelihood. Again, majority of the time, you're going to see that number at 1.5, and we're going to give you either the advice that we think somebody's going to win, but not by 2, so take the money line, or we think somebody's going to win by 2 or more, and that you should take the puck line. That's pretty much always how that's going to break out. So that's kind of an intro to the betting terms. Like I said, the first game we're going to take is the Lightning versus the Penguins. 10-12, it's the 7:30 game, whatever that is. We are going to take the Lightning on the puck line. Any thoughts on that, Connor? I mean, that one seems fairly straightforward to me, but I know that you have your own opinions on that.
It is pretty straightforward. I think that for what it is coming in after the back-to-back championship, this is going to be the raise the banner game, yada, yada, yada. They're going to be buzzing, taking it all the way. I think it's going to be
Penguins.
This is going to be our lock of the week. If Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby weren't injured, I think this game goes completely the other way because of it being the first game of the year, coming out and showing the banner, yada, yada, yada. But as stands, Lightning all the way.
Yeah, and I like Connor said, I think it's the lock of the week. What I will tell you is that the book's not as confident as we are. So right now, at the time of recording, this will shift. The puck line for the Tampa Bay Lightning at minus 1.5 is at a plus 135. So the book thinks that Tampa Bay is going to win because they've got them at the minus on the money line, but they're not sure they're going to win by 2 at a plus 135. I think that's a solid bet. And if you bet $5, you'd win like 5.5. So it's not a huge return, but we're going to try and bet pretty safely with everybody this year, just to make sure that everybody can enjoy it and keep it going as long as possible this season. So the next game, same day, we're playing both opening games. How can you not as hockey fans? I probably would lay off this game if it were an opening night, just because it's such an unknown, but it's the Golden Knights versus the Kraken. Kraken's first regular season game in the league. Why not throw a unit on it, just like we are with the Lightning? Opening night, exciting stuff. Unit on each of these. Not going to bust your bankroll. We're going to take the puck line on this one as well. Golden Knights are favored to win against the Kraken. The Golden Knights are home. Seems like a pretty open and shut one to me as well. But what are your thoughts on this one, Connor?
Actually, perfect timing. Just got a notification. Mark Giordano has just been announced as the captain of the Seattle Kraken.
All right.
They just made it official from their account. So, yes, Vegas is playing in Vegas against a brand new team. Their team is not that great. I don't see the land of misfit toys coming together like they did in Vegas. Vegas is way better than them. I think they are going to blow Seattle out of the building tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking them on the puck line because it's, you know what, honestly, it's only at a 2-goal differential. It feels to me like that should be easy enough to do. If you want a little extra one on that, right, you could think about taking potentially the total. The total's only set at 5.5. So at 5.5, I'm going to hit that because I'm assuming it's a 4-2 game, something like that. I mean, if it were 6, I'd tell you to lay off. 5.5, I would do. If I'm getting even more risky, which I probably wouldn't do, I'd maybe hit the parlay on that one. Just if you like those. Parlays, basically when you put 2 bets in, 2 or more bets, when you combine them together, keep in mind, you have to win every one of those. If you lose, if you make a 5-way parlay and lose just one, you lose the whole bet. So like, parlays are not probably your best bet. Our official play is going to be the Golden Knights on the puck line for that one. Last game for us to touch on here is the 13th, the Washington Capitals versus the New York Rangers. I think after Connor's soliloquy earlier on the New York Rangers, you can probably guess that we are going to hit on the New York Rangers for this one on the money line. So definitely stick to that one on the money line. I'm not confident enough to put that on the puck line, but Connor, if you want to bump that up, it is only 1.5 on the puck line.
I'm not that comfortable. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think the Rangers are going to win for sure. That's why money line was it for me. I'm more of a money line kind of guy than a puck line, I guess you could say. I would rather pick who's going to win than by how much.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a safer bet for the most part, right? Like, it's more predictable. I think puck lines generally have a little bit of a better return for you, especially on a game like the Lightning or the Knights, the Golden Knights, where they're heavily favored, right? I mean, winning 50 cents on a dollar is great. If it hits, you still win money. It's not like you're not winning money. It's just you have to, at some point, balance risk, right? I mean, this is gambling. So as much as I just went on that whole, like, gamble safely, like, you are still gambling. So expect to lose some money. But I think that these are 3 pretty good bets for the first 2 days. That's all the book has available right now. Bruins game will happen. I will probably take the Bruins on the money line in the first game, regardless of what the odds are. But we will tweet that out to confirm prior to that game actually happening. You will notice during the season, we only give you the next couple of days worth of bets because that's all we're going to be able to get out of the book. If we have a bold prediction for later in the week that we're so confident in, or if it's a Bruins game, we'll tweet out our play before the game. And that's probably a good segue. Give us a follow to get our daily action at PucklinesPod on Twitter. That will be where all our plays are tweeted from. No promises that we make them to Facebook, Instagram, those other places. So please, if you're looking to follow the Daily Play, make sure to get on Twitter and follow us there. Thank you, Mark Allred and the Black and Gold Productions team for supporting our show. It's an absolute treasure to be on the network. We enjoy it. You can check out our merch at blackandgoldhockey.com. One more plug for our YouTube channel. Please help me get to 100 subscribers so I can stop looking at my high school username. It's really frightening and hurts a lot. And then you can follow me at Andrew Taverna on Twitter. And Connor, go ahead and take us away, bud.
Yeah, you can find me at Connor Green 777 on Twitter. And again, thank you everyone for listening. We will see you again later this week with some bonus content. Enjoy the beginning of the NHL season and don't be a degenerate gambler. Take it easy, folks.